This program is part of the Scene Project's podcast network. The Scene Project features interviews with independent musicians, comedians, and artists from across the Midwest. Become part of our community and support local art wherever you are. Well, welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is former pro cheerleader and now music artist, Kayla K. Welcome to the show, Kayla.
Hi. How are you guys?
Man, well, we are so good. We're cold here. I live in South Dakota, Kayla, and it's like negative 34 real feel outside today. It's just brutal. But I hope by the time this episode makes it out, it is much warmer everywhere, and we are talking about spring.
Yes, for sure. I am also freezing here in Minnesota. I think it was negative 10 today.
Well, you're farther north than I am, so even worse. Even worse. Well, enough about the weather, Kayla. We came here to spill some tea and to talk about some real important things. But before we get too far into it, why don't you go ahead and just give us a little bit of your backstory, and we'll pick it up along the way.
Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Michaela, or as some of you know, Kayla K. I am from Duluth, Minnesota. Shout out to Minnesota. I am 29 years old, so I'm getting up there. And I am a former cheerleader and music artist. So I grew up dancing in Duluth. I danced for Medill Performing Arts Center. They are amazing. Shout out to them. And then I cheered in high school. And I know I took a break for a while, went through a lot of crazy things in my life and a lot of experiences. And I moved away for a little bit, and then I came back to Minnesota, and I decided it was time to take a risk and do something I've never done. So I tried out for cheerleading, and it was a professional cheerleading team in my hometown. And that's kind of what led me to where I am now.
Well, that's amazing that you got to live like this whole several lives, it seems like, before we've gotten to this point, but that you get to kind of go and live the childhood dream. I'm sure a lot of girls grow up in dance or cheerleading and dreaming about doing it for a professional team of some sort, whether that's for the Minnesota Vikings, our beloved, or, just on there's so many pro teams now, right? There's so many different levels to pro sports that I think people forget, like there's a lot of work in there, right? And not necessarily, I'm sure, below the like NFL level, you were still having to work another job as well and to do some things, right? So, I mean, you're a cheerleader, but that's not your only profession at that time.
Correct.
So now you're moving into music. And what, have you always been a musician as well? Obviously, you're around music as a dancer, and I can tell just from your energy that you probably have been a singer your whole life. But where did the passion to kind of pursue music professionally, when did that happen?
So having been blessed enough to go to Medill Performing Arts Center when I was younger, I had a few singing lessons growing up. And I think that's what really triggered the passion for me singing in my music. So I kind of sang my whole life, like in the shower and in the car with the music really loud. But like I would go to sleep and like dream about performing on these big stages and like, the lights everywhere and the energy. And like, so I knew one day I was like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sing. And so when I was like 16 years old, my cousin Dante actually called me over to the studio and he said, hey, I have this song and I need a female to sing the chorus and I don't have anybody else. So like, please do it. Please do it. And I was like, you know what? Okay, great. I will. So I left. I went over there. We laid down the track ever. I still remember the chorus to this day. I won't sing it, but we laid down the track. We played it back and listened to it. And we all just stood there in awe for like 2 minutes. Because we've never actually really heard me sing. So we sat and we were like, oh my gosh. And then my cousin looked at me and he goes, I didn't know you could sing like that. And I looked at him and I went, me either. So that's when I knew like music and being an artist and singing was where it started. And so I started writing a lot. When I was 18, I started really like taking serious, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna write songs, things like that. Never really gotten myself to the studio. It wasn't until I was about, I think, 21 when I actually released my first single. It's Go. You can go stream it on YouTube. Type in Kayla/K, no word, just the letter, Kayla K, Kizzy. So, and then type in Go and you can find it. That was my first ever music video and like official song. And I heard it, I loved it. I shot the video in downtown Chicago, and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. And so I've been doing music ever since. I've gotten the opportunity to perform many different places. Performing a few like times I have in Duluth and Superior, and really getting used to that home stage, but then also like having the opportunity to go down to the cities and perform, and bigger places. I performed in Vegas for this Shots concert. It was a new shot bar that was opening up by the Strip, and so I got to go and perform there, and that was an interesting time for me. You learn a lot about performing out of town when you don't have fans, but it was still an opportunity. It was still an experience, and I learned a lot from it. And then I was in a music competition, and I got to perform at the opening Super Bowl show. It was like the radio that was putting it on, and when I was in Tampa, and it was like a competition for like everybody could perform and whatever, and that was the most incredible experience of my entire life. So, that was where my music career began. But then I started cheering, and I took a little bit of a break. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a professional cheerleader. And that's what I'm going to do, because that was a dream with dancing growing up. After the season, I definitely realized that music is where I'm supposed to be. And I love to perform, and I would love to like teach the youth and, give people who maybe can't afford to go to a performing arts center opportunities to learn cheer and dance. And I think that's where my lane is with that, but will ever and for always be music. Absolutely.
Well, and obviously there's a performative aspect to the cheer, right? Like you're out there, you're performing, you're in front of all the people, you're under the lights, right? So I can see why the two worlds would be easy for you to kind of dip back and forth from. But
Right.
it seems like they've always been very separate for you. Like if you're doing one, you're doing it to the max. And if you're gonna put that, if you're gonna go do the other one, then you kind of have to like put this one down and go do that. But it feels like there's got to be somewhere where they can come together too, or at least, maybe seasons of your life where you're doing, more of the teaching cheer. It sounds like you're wanting to move into now, which I think is awesome, Kayla. I think that's so cool. That's something that I'm quite a bit older than you. I'll be 39 this year. But I love teaching that next generation, right? Accepting that role of, I went through a lot of the stuff that you did, and I want to teach you to avoid some of the pitfalls that I fell into. For me, that's this podcast, right? That's my education for my music community. But for you, cheer camps or stuff like that, it allows you to express that side of you, but to not have to go all into it. Right. You don't have a season that you're worried about, and it's taking up, 6 to 8 months of your life, possibly, depending on the sport. So I think it's really awesome where you found yourself now, but it wasn't by chance necessarily that you got out of cheerleading. And that's kind of something you alluded to a little bit before we got on camera today. And now that experience that you lived through is informing and is expressing itself through music now. So you wanted to kind of share a story with us, and I want to give you the opportunity to do that here now. So.
Okay, well, first let me say that if you are watching this, I'm going to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Kayla K, on YouTube, obviously, and Kayla Wenzel on Facebook. Go look at the profiles and watch the song that is coming out. It is set to come out February 28th, and it talks about the whole experience and how I felt about cheering with the Harbor Monsters cheerleading team. So go check out my new single. It's about to drop. With that being said, after you listen to the song, I want you to come back here, and then we're going to unpack it. And we're going to talk about why I felt that I wanted to say the things I said. And I think that I want to first off say that I 100% respect the Duluth Harbor Monsters organization. My little brother plays for the team. Shout out Terrence Wenzel, number 14. So when you see him on a field this year, just know that's my brother. But I really do. I respect the organization. The owners are amazing. I had such a wonderful time working with them actually, and I loved being on stage. I loved being on the field, especially cheering for my younger brother who plays for the team as well. So that was like a feeling like no other, that I am so grateful to have the opportunity to have had, like forever grateful for you guys, because that changed my whole entire life. So no matter what I say here, regardless of how I feel, I just want to know that I don't feel this way about the organization itself, but just literally strictly the cheer coaches and the cheer team. So cheer don't got nothing to do with football, isn't that what they say? Don't got beef with the team, just have beef with the cheerleaders because it isn't them, and I love them. But cheering my first professional season of football was an experience like no other in so many ways. As I mentioned, my little brother, Terrence Wenzel, he plays for the team, number 14, in case you forgot. So growing up, watching my little brother play football, I was really big into it. Like I was his number one cheerleader already. So to have the opportunity to cheer professionally in my hometown with my brother on the team, like we are both getting paid to do what we love right now. My mom can come and sit in the stands and watch that football and cheer and dance investment pay off because now we're getting paid to do this. I could cry.
It's such an awesome experience, right? To bring that full circle and to have an opportunity to do it in your hometown, right? This isn't the high school team where you were able to do it. And I don't know how much younger your brother is than you, but maybe you never even got that opportunity in high school or anything like that, right? So to be able to be on the same field with your blood, right, and with your mama in the stands, like that's just awesome on so many levels already.
Changed my life. And so I was more than excited to be on this team and cheer. And I think from day one, even at auditions, the energy was just thick between me and my like the energy is going to be thick with the people you're trying out against for sure. I don't know about you guys, but one thing I do like to do is when I'm successful, I want to get the task, I want to achieve the task I'm going for. So I want to make this team.
I think we've all seen some of the cheer programs on Netflix to know how competitive and cutthroat that scene can be.
So the energy is thick, but the energy can also be thick with the person who's putting on the event as well. And so it's fine. I made the team. It was successful. We had to try out, and it was I enjoyed trying out for my first dance team. I really did, personally. And so I made the team. Was more than excited. I remember going to the restaurant and signing our contract and seeing it for the first time and reading through it all. It was such a super exciting experience. And then as the season went on, I feel the energy had changed at practice individually. I was getting singled out for quite a bit by the coaches. It was like, Kayla, you're doing it too big, too big, too big. And then literally 10 minutes later in practice, she would look at everybody else and be like, okay, girls, like you can't do it too big now. Like you got to do it bigger. You want me to know my real opinion on that? If we're going to speak facts right now, I agree that there is times that I can always work and become a better dancer. So let me first say I don't need to be corrected. I love being corrected. I think it's important because I learn. So I'm going to take everything you say and I'm going to apply the corrections for sure. But there's a way you can apply corrections and just literally like singling somebody out is two very different things. But with that being said, I think personally, the reason why she said that to the other girls and then said I was doing it too big is because personally, the other girls on the team could not keep up with the energy level that I was bringing as a performer, not even as like a person, you know what I'm saying? But as a performer,
right?
I'm talking with your face, with your body.
So knowing that probably she couldn't raise the whole harbor of ships up to your level, just try to dim Kayla. We need to bring Kayla down so that I can bring these people up a level or two, but I can't raise them 4 or 5 levels to get to where Kayla is when she's giving max effort.
Right. So that happened. And let me also start by saying, because with me speaking on my experiences and pointing out the negative experiences that I had with them, I am not always the perfect individual either. And so I don't want to like push blame away from me and take accountability for like actions that I had. It was a few times I was late to practice, you know what I'm saying? And we talked about it. Wasn't late ever since, you know? So I want to really like accept and acknowledge my accountability in the role of the situation that happened, because I think that's important and I don't want to leave that out. With that being said, you know what I'm saying? What happened still happened. And it's one thing for me to not be perfect, and I have things I work on too, but how I was treated was to the extreme, and it was not necessary for that. It was kind of giving a little bit of racism. I was the only Black girl on the team. You know what I'm saying? Very different energy.
Easy to feel that way. You know what I mean? Even if there's not a connotation to them personal, right? Like an outward racism about it, it's going to feel that way. You're the only color. You're the only color. You're the only Black girl on the team, right? I don't know if there was Hispanic people on, girls on the team or anything, but Duluth, Minnesota, I would say predominantly white area, right? Like not a lot different than South Dakota would be. So there's going to be, what do they call the, inherent racism, right? And just
Right.
the inherent bias that we have.
I think it's the Minnesota nice racism. Like I've been to the South, like places like Alabama. Shout out to Huntsville. Shout out to my people in Huntsville, Alabama, where I experienced racism, and it was blatantly different. Like they make you know right from the get go, you are not welcome here. So it's a very different type of racism. Where Minnesota racism, in a metaphor, would be like a woman following you at the store. In the background.
Right.
She's not really going to come up to you and say to you, like, I think you're doing these things, but I'm going to watch you and I'm going to treat you different. It's Minnesota nice, energy, nice racism. I don't know how to explain it, and I don't think it was just that. I think I didn't think that at first, because I really am not the one to click. For me personally, as Kayla, I grew up being called the white Black girl. So like I've been in a lot of situations where normally averagely racist people would still encounter with me. So it takes a lot for me to say that you kind of are giving me that you don't like, because I'm not one to call hate. I'm not the one to call racism. I'm not going to lie. I don't think so. But it just became over time apparently clear that something is off, and I can't really pinpoint what it would be, because realistically, if I'm a talented dancer, if I needed work, and I'm not, every dancer needs work, but if I, from quote unquote, from the fans, repeatedly all season was one of the best on the team, and this is coming from the fans' mouth, not mine. If I was one of the best on the team, we got screenshots and we can look at whose kicks are where. So it's not my lack of ability. It's not my lack of sales and marketing, as I was on social media before I started doing cheerleading and continued to do so. I used cheerleading and social media together. We're building both of our fan bases. That's what I'm trying to do. We had a whole cheer team meeting where she called every one of the cheerleaders who we all actively know, because they look at our profiles, that they all are on private. The only person who wasn't on private was mine, because I have a public profile. I'm a music artist. I need my music out. And they called the whole team meeting, the coaches did, in front of everybody, and was like, by the way, like, we need everybody to put their social medias to private. Well, we all know. And then not only that, not only was like in a situation where it's like, we all know everybody's is private but mine, they all decided, the other cheerleaders, to say, well, mine's private, so no problem. That's not a big deal. Like, I don't mind if we need it to be private. And that's the intention of them saying it. It wasn't like ours is private and hers is not. No, they were like, no issue if you want our profiles private, because they already are. You know what I'm saying? That was the energy with the cheerleaders. But they still all individually said their profiles were private. The only person in that scenario that was like, hi, I have a public profile, is me. And so you called a whole team meeting, like during cheer practice time, to call me out and tell me that I need to make my social media private. My first view. So listen, I am not by any means like this big viral content creator, but let me tell you where it came from. These numbers that I'm getting now, like the simple 10,000 views and 30,000 views, make my entire life, because this is the most views that I've ever had in my life. So, but that's a decent amount of views for someone who's never had it.
Right. Well, and I don't understand how they can ask you, because it's not like you're on an official, like on their using their name. It's your life. It's your brand, right? And unless there was something contractually in your contract that said that you're not allowed to use like any of your field footage or any of like what right do they have to even tell you to go private? Like that is your brand. Right.
That is
and
true.
it seemed like it was only helping their brand as well, because none of their other cheerleaders were about the brand at all. They were all set to private. Maybe us musicians just look at stuff a little differently, right? Coming up in this world where all of our life is so outwardly faced and public facing, that like to start hiding my life would be kind of weird. Like to stop posting about my cat at this point would be blasphemous.
Well, and they said to us too that we all checked your social medias before we asked you if, like, before we gave you the offer for the job. So with my social media, it is very abundantly clear that like I have music out, like I have a little Kayla K brand on social media. So, you know, let me say, I guess I thought I was under the assumption that we were all under the understanding that going into the situation, this is what I do. You know, I've been making on TikToks and things like that to try to build myself up. And so I felt there was an understanding that we were in the public eye. And that was the whole big pitch on being a professional cheerleader, is we're in the public eye and like we could be famous. And if we are, like, then we have to be careful. But I guess it's just, we can't get famous if nobody sees us because we're on private.
Which, yeah, just doesn't make sense to me. And in some way, I'm starting to wonder if some of the you know, the motivation was that, hey, Kayla's actually using our platform better than we are. And she's getting, you know, she's using this to further her career, and maybe somebody else doesn't get to. I don't know. I don't know if there's a competition factor. There's so many things.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here.
I'm trying to tell you. That's why I need to talk about it. I feel like I'm in a therapy session, you guys. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Therapy with Kayla K.
my listeners are used to it. We talk about my prison time and all of my stuff in my past all the time.
You've been in prison before? Oh, let me hear. Yeah. Not to switch the interview, but like I've been through a lot of things in my life, and we can even get into that later, and why I truly believe that rebuilding yourself is so important. So like, look, you're so successful coming from that, like, to this now, like, wow, congratulations. Good for you.
Thank you. Well, and then to be a beacon to tell other people that I made a lot of really bad choices and just kept making bad choices to land in prison. I didn't, you know what I mean? I wasn't raised in a place that had no hope. I had all the advantages, right? I am a white man in today's society. I had all the advantages. I just kept making really shitty choices, Kayla, time after time after time. And I decided I wanted to be a drug dealer more than to be successful in anything else, right? And granted, it was just pot, and I have a license that allows me to legally possess as much as I possessed when they caught me. But the fact remains the same, is that I knew what I was doing was wrong, right? I had to accept accountability for that. That was a major point in my life where it was like, no, you have to pay the piper. You don't get to just go through life and to face no accountability for your actions, right? So, I mean, that was a big turning point for me. I came out of prison with a trade. I learned how to weld while I was in there, but that was also because of choices I made. I had to make the choice to take the class in prison. Nobody just opened that door for me and said, well, this is what you're going to do to make your life better. I had to make those choices, right? And actually being here now, right, is a testament to how good those choices were, right? And the fact that it's moved my life along. And now I want to be able to return to those places and to tell other young men, hey, you don't have to continue on this cycle, right? Like, you can start making better choices. But, you know, there's always going to be someone around you that wants to dull your shine. And unfortunately, Kayla, that feels like a lot of what was happening to you, is that there was someone above you, or someone's, right, that didn't like all the shine that Kayla had. And they were going to do anything in their power to take a Brillo pad to that and to start scuffing that up. Right? Yeah. They're going to scuff that shine. And no, we're not going to let her polish, you know, kind of reflect poorly on the rest of us, because she is levels and levels higher in skill and ability and just the want to advance your brand, right? Like that. So much of what you've been telling me seems counterintuitive to any kind of outward facing business, especially one that relies
trying to make money.
Well, and relies on a public appearance, right? Like, you are in the public. You would want your cheerleaders to be public. Now, I guess it would make, if they had like their own that was just, they were running a Facebook page that was about you cheerleaders, right? And they were like, if there was some conflict of interest in there, but that doesn't sound like what it was. It sounds like they were just trying to, nah, we don't need to be contributing to Kayla shining any brighter than she already is. And in fact, we would like to make her shine less. And I can tell just being on a Zoom call with you, like that ain't going to happen.
Never, never in your entire life, ever will it ever happen. Ever. You know, with that being said, I really want to say, because I agree with you, and I do think that it is a lot of energies, and not even just from the cheerleaders, but in my life, coming to block that shine. And kind of touching back on what we were just talking about, this is the reason why. So I'm a former drug addict, or what do you call it? I'm in recovery. I don't like to call it recovery. You know what I'm saying? I live in Minnesota. Weed is legal. You know, I'm not currently smoking weed at the moment, but it's still, weed is legal, you know, and I love the California sober. But, you know, I think that the person that I used to be, I've been to jail. You know what I'm saying? I've been to treatment countless times. Like I was through my life, I was making some very bad decisions. I also had a lot of advantages. It's crazy being a Black girl in Duluth. When growing up, it was not the same, you know? And my mom still made a way to find a way to have me have opportunities to like go to performing arts centers and stuff like that. And then I still chose the wrong path. Mental health awareness. Let's take a second for mental health awareness, because it is not talked about enough. And it wasn't until I took the focus to fixing my mental health that I was able to get off that path and then start making the decisions subconsciously to change my life, you know? And I think that in Duluth, which is a big, small town where people know my past and know where I used to be, I'm going through a lot still. You know what I'm saying? Even not making the choices I'm still dealing with the consequences of those actions every single day of my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm fighting right now to build a relationship again with my son. I have a child. You know what I'm saying? And so like, that's been a huge thing, because I hurt him very bad with my decisions. Like I'm personally dealing with so many things that I'm still trying to rebuild from what I broke. And so I think that sometimes people can't fathom that when somebody makes a really bad decision, that they are not allowed to make good decisions anymore. You can't be successful. Like you used to do drugs. So you used to whatever, you know, you used to make bad decisions. And so the idea of someone like you becoming a professional cheerleader, you know, they can't fathom the fact that people can actually change their life and fight their demons.
Right. So do you feel like that past also had something to do with, you know, the experience that you had to live? Do you feel like some of these people were holding that past against you and were kind of like, hey, we can't be, you know, putting this out here, or just the fact that you were, you know, obviously not worried about putting it on your social media and stuff too, that was reflecting negatively on them somehow?
See, so no, because one thing is apparent and aware, like background checks being done when you get hired for the Arena League, that it's evident, it is there. You know what I'm saying? And so it was never brought up during the season. I never feel like they were like, because of who you are, you can't do this. I don't think it was ever that at all. I think it had to, I think that was deep rooted for why they felt like that. But I think because of the fact that what I was doing so well. And if we were to rank everybody's on a score of where we're at, I just feel like our levels probably wouldn't be around the same. So I think that it was a little bit of the lack of focus on their own talent and then trying to destroy mine, I think is where the energy was coming from. But I think it messed up their heads even more that it was somebody like her, somebody like that, you know? It was like, how is she better? How is she doing better, you know? And I think that was really the energy, because it was never brought up to me or like thrown in my face or like used against me. I don't feel at all. They did it in so much other like weird ways.
Well, yeah, they did it all behind your back, or with a policy change, or with a this or a that. I mean, it's the same. It all comes back to the same thing. They're just trying to dull your shine because they don't think you deserve it. Why should you get to shine? Why should she get to shine after all she's been through, right? Why does she get to be the brightest and the best out here? And in some ways that speaks to a much deeper rooted problem, right? And that is not, has nothing
Mental
to do
health
with you.
awareness.
Well, and it doesn't have
Mental
anything
health awareness.
right. Well, and it doesn't have anything to do with you. It has something to do with these people that feel that way, that somehow you're not worthy because of your life experience to achieve some level, some arbitrary level in their minds, when maybe it's their own self-worth that they are feeling, right? That they're not putting in the work. The problem is that Kayla's got her butt kicked before and knows how much work it takes to make something happen for yourself, right? And those people probably don't want to do the work to be as good as you are. And that's really the issue. So it's easier to tear you down than it is to, I don't know, get their ass in the gym, to work on their kicks, to do all the
Go
other
to practice
things.
after you get home.
To be, yeah, exactly, man. And I think I mean, people like us that have been kicked down and kicked while we're down, right? I mean, my kids have suffered at my, right? I missed almost 6 years of my oldest son's life through, bad choices. I missed my daughter being born. I missed, years of my children's life because of my choices. But I turned around and I said, hey, those choices aren't going to define the rest of my life. I'm going to do my time. I'm going to get it over with so that I can move on and raise my children. And that's all that I've done for the past 7 years now. I got out in 2018. So, coming up on 7 years.
Round of applause, because look at where you're at. And you should be proud to pat yourself on the back, because it is hard. It's a whole different route. It's not like just getting a job and just starting something new. You're rebuilding on top of trying to match where other people are at to still compete for the same opportunities that they're having while still rebuilding when you're mentally way back here. So, like, I'm proud of you and how far you've come. In 7 years, and look at this is where you're at. Like, hell yeah. And you're just going to keep going. And I think I will too. And I think that's the plan here. So I support that. I think a lot of people aren't used to that.
No, but that's exactly why we have to go out and to be the lighthouses, right? My friend, co-host of my other show, Get Better Together, which I think we're going to have you back on to have a little bit more in-depth convo. Those episodes typically go a little bit longer, but it's so important for us to get our stories out there. And it's so important for us to go out there and be a lighthouse, because there's kids out there like me and you that are in the midst of making bad choices that are going to lead them down the path that we went to. And I'm not doing this for the people that were trying to tear you down or to actively trying to tear me down, right? I just don't pay any attention to them. My wife sent me a meme the other day, was like, a lion doesn't worry about the hyenas on the path when they're walking the path, right? Like, I don't care. I got my path and I'm walking it. And I want to be a beacon that other lions can follow, because I don't want to, I don't know. I hate gossip. I've always hated that, right? And gossip starts to breed situations like what happened to you. It started because two girls were like, I can't believe, oh, did you hear what Kayla did? Right? Like, I can only imagine the conversations that were had behind your back. And it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
No.
But you've turned it into something beautiful now. I know you're writing a song about it, and we're having this conversation now. We know the date. You got 10 days from the time we're talking that it's going to come out. I'll probably hold this episode back until the song is out so that people can listen to the song and then let it ride out. So this will probably come out first part of March. But Kayla, I got to let you go for today. Can you go ahead and plug everything one more time? I'm going to have you back. We're going to get you back on Get Better Together. We're going to go more in depth on all of this stuff and really talk about the mental health side, right? Because you don't come back from it without being strong up here, right? You don't go through all the things that you or I have gone through in our lives without being mentally strong, having strong faith in God or whatever faith that you have, that it's put somewhere. You have a reason to wake up every day. And whatever that is that keeps you waking up, I hope you keep that fire for the rest of your natural born life, right? Because that is what is changing this world right now. And it's conversations like this that are changing our world.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast. And yes, I can talk about mental health all day. We could have went all day. So thank you guys for all listening to me and having this conversation with me, because I feel like that's what we did today, was have a really well conversation. Remember, you guys can check me out at Kayla K on YouTube or Kayla K 218 on Instagram and TikTok. And, stay tuned. You guys are running up my song a little bit faster than usual. So if you guys keep running it up on Facebook, I'll drop the song early.
Let's go. Kayla K, Thanks for being part of the scene.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Scene Projects Podcast Network. We appreciate you listening. You can find more at thesceneprojects.com. Join our community.
Got an ocean full of love that's made for two. We sail upon the ocean breeze and sunshine feels like you loving me.